Well, thank you for staying with us. It is still the conversation here on Lagos Television. And thank you for staying with us through the years, celebrating LTV at 45. And you heard it there from one of our former general manager, Shino Elegbede. I have with me here Dr. Jeff Adebowale. He is a development... Oh, no, this is not right. He is a policy development strategist, and we will be talking about food security challenges in Lagos. But before we go into our conversation, Dr. Jeff, let's get your own perception about Lagos Television. Just before we came on air, you were saying LTV is home for you.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning to you, and good morning to Lagosians and Nigerians at large. Yes, it's been 45 years. Well, I'm just a little older than LTV, but it's been home. I know that there was a particular year I was always in this compound 24/7, literally every day of the week, maybe a few hours on Sunday, because I was at the radio house managing the Remix Studios, and so of course always, you know, it was always been a pleasure being in this compound 24/7. You know, if I was not recording artists, I was seeing what was going on the TV side, and so it's been fun. It's been one part of the journey of my life that has really shaped how I see things and see things differently, because I mean this is a 24-hour environment, and you can see the energy that, you know, that this particular structure brings, you know, to Lagos State. So I mean it's great to be celebrating 45 years with the station.
Still standing through the years.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, back to our conversation now, talking about food security challenges in Lagos. Now, with a rapidly growing population, urban expansion, inflation and disruption in the food supply chain, ensuring that every household has access to safe, affordable and nutritious food has become a major concern. Now, food security remains one of the most pressing issues confronting not just Lagos State and not just Nigeria, even, you know, the world at large. But to help us unpack this, I have introduced our guest here already, and so let's just, you know, jump into the conversation. And when we're talking about food security, let's look at it in the context of Lagos, because we can't look at it with the same lens if we're maybe in the northern part of the state. So for us here in Lagos, when we talk about food security, what comes to your mind?
I mean, in itself, we've seen Lagos come from where, I mean, I'm a Lagosian, full-blown Lagosian for that matter. I'm from the side of Lagos where we could arguably would say where you could still produce food for Lagos State. I'm from Imota, from the Ikorodu axis, so you know we still have a lot of farmlands. Yes, we still have a lot of farmlands that we can use for production. And I remember growing up having to go to farm, you know, having some farm engagement with, you know, my grandmother, my parent. We used to have the kola nut farms, and now literally do not exist anymore. So of course you could see back in the day my grandmom used to make cassava, turn it into gari, and then now she doesn't do it, my mother doesn't do it, none of the grandchildren does. And so you can see how generation have shifted, and we're no longer producing within Lagos, so we are dependent on those who produce from outside the state and have to bring into the state. And what is very prevalent that you must understand is also the infrastructure of the value chain. I mean, we lose about 40% of what is produced from the farm that gets onto the table. So if you look at all those statistics and you look at what is going on now, the whole of Ibejuleki into Ekpe, well, has not necessarily been farmland, for example, but they're all turning into real estate projects. Land banking, and of course we can talk around the issue of the fraud and all of those things that happen in those axes. If you then go into Ikorodu, into Agboa, further down into Itokin, to then get into Ketu, into Ekpe, you will discover that most of the lands that could have been used for agriculture are becoming estates, land banks and all those funny stuff. And so there is that fear of how do we then sustain those who are Lagosians who live in Lagos and work in Lagos, you know, in providing food. Now you then now talk about the growth of population in Lagos. You know, I mean, Lagos has always been the capital city, the city of commerce. Everything happens in Lagos. The economy of Lagos arguably is bigger than many countries along the West African coast. So if you look at all those numbers and all those statistics, I mean, we should all be scared as to what is going to happen to Lagos and to food in Lagos. There was a year I was in Kano and I realized that a basket of tomato in Kano was 1,000 naira. Yes, a basket of tomato at that, you know, that year was 1,000 naira. But in Lagos, the same year, the same day, was going for about 14,000. So clearly you can see that a basket of tomato had to travel 2-3 days from Kano to Lagos. And so all of that logistics, all of the waste that happens, because if you go to My 12, what you will find in a basket, and you're a lady and you go to the market, so you would discover that if you check a basket, maybe 50% of it is still very good and the remaining is called Esha. So, I mean, anybody who has paid for the logistics and must, I mean, say for example, the basket of tomatoes get to Lagos at 10,000 naira. The person who is going to sell is not going to sell at a loss. So he's going to sell at 14,000 with the understanding that he's going to make back his money and all of that and still make some profit to be able to go back to the market and bring more. So these are all of the challenges, you know, that we must consider. And I think we've discussed this once before, and I mentioned that I was traveling between Ibadan, I think it was Ibadan to Lagos, and then as I was driving, for every second or thereabout, I was seeing a piece of tomato on the road, on the highway. And then I knew it. I said, I'm going to see the truck in front. And clearly, as I got to the front and I met with the truck, for every second, tomato was dropping from the basket from the truck. So imagine that loss that that person is going to have. And it's going to have to be you and I that will pay for it. So, I mean, those are all of the things that we need to consider. So the octopus of the food security in Nigeria is there's one head but many legs to the risk and all of the things that we have to discuss. But I like the innovation of the government and particularly praising Mr. Governor for the Produce for Lagos initiative. I was
going to ask your own perception about that. But before we get into that, I'd like us to also look at the implications, because you mentioned that, I mean, we know that urbanization has taken place in Lagos. As you said, some of the lands now have real estate development there, which is a good thing. Well, you know, but again, can we look at the implications of these things?
So the implications is like I said, we would have less land to produce. Right, so whether you talk about crop or you talk about animal produce, you have less land because the land to do all of those productions are shrinking. Again, generationally and you know, technological advancements and all of that, we're supposed to be bringing in new technologies to farming, you know, hydroponics tower and all of that, but we're not. Like I said, my grandmother, we used to go to the farm and harvest cassava and make gari. She doesn't make it anymore. My mom doesn't. We don't. And I don't ever think my children will ever go to the farm to
have they been to farmland before?
I don't know. They haven't. So, so clearly, all of the shift in generation and the urbanization is taking us further away from production, right? And the urbanization itself is making Lagos more of an urban city, getting into a smart city, and very soon will become an ultra-modern smart city. And so if you then consider all of those conversations, we would definitely come to the point where we can't produce anything in Lagos as a state. We'll have to depend on other states that produces. So we must be intelligent in how we sort of project, you know, what's going to happen in Lagos in another 5 years, 2030. And of course, again, begin to see how we collaborate with other states that still have the farmlands that can be used for production. If not, I mean, we would get to the point where food will be too expensive, you know, for you and I to have whenever we're in Lagos State.
You know, with the constant number of people trooping into the state, there will be need for housing, and the real estate business will continue to grow. But before we go into the state government's initiative, when we talk about food security now, the food security challenges in Lagos, do you think it is more of affordability or availability, considering the current economic situation in the state?
Yeah, it's basically more of availability rather than affordability, because like I said, it's the availability that, I mean, it's a simple economics of, you know, food or anything, demand versus supply. If you have a lot in the market, supply, prices will drop, right? But if you have less and there's scarcity, prices will go up, because then people will pay premium for what is available. That's what we're seeing. You know, like I said, I'm not particularly certain as of today how much a basket of tomato is from Kano, but again, you know, I frequent Kano a lot, so, but I've not been in the market to do, you know, specific research as to what is the current price. But I know that if you check the price in Kano vis-a-vis what you have in Lagos, the disparity is huge, and that disparity is because of that value chain of getting the produce out of, you know, Kano to get it to Lagos. We still don't have infrastructures like train that can bring, you know, food produce almost within 24 hours from where it's been produced to the capital city for it to become readily available. So if that is not there, that's going to impact on the price, you know. And it's the same thing even if you talk about animal produce like cows and goats and all of that. If you're buying up Castina into Jigawa, those regions, a goat, for example, you're probably going to times 100 of it when it gets to Lagos because of the logistic and all the other auxiliary issues around security and all of that. So those are the things that impact. It's the availability that then, you know, affects the affordability.
But again, you know, I don't know if I should say the common man, can they really afford what's in the market? Because the food are there,
yes,
it's in the market. But again, how many people can afford to buy, like we're talking about tomatoes now, the good ones and the Esha.
Yes.
Some people will just go for the Esha.
Because that's what they can afford, rather than buying the good ones. I mean, if you take a look at, you know, if you come to the conversation of, for example, yams, let's move a little bit from tomatoes. If you go to yam, for example, we used to buy a tuber of yam maybe 200 naira. I mean, and even at that point it was expensive. Now a tuber of yam is in the thousands.
7,000, 8,000.
So at the end of the day, people hardly, you know, get to eat yam these days, you know, because you have to change your diet just to be able to at least afford what you can, you know, what your money can buy in the market. And there's no conversation of whether it's 5 square meals or 3 square meals.
Just
now it's
something.
Just make sure your tummy is filled.
Okay, now let's come to the Produce for Lagos program that you mentioned earlier. When you heard about this, what were your thoughts as regards this initiative by the state government? I
was excited. I was excited about the initiative. I was excited about the volume that was committed. And I watched this particularly live, and I think I was in Abuja on the day it happened, or I was in Kano, Abuja, one of those regions, and I saw it and I was excited. I was particularly excited about Mr. Tony Elumelu and his commitment, as much as others who made a humongous commitment to produce for Lagos. And I saw it as an initiative that will transform and, you know, get us to the place that we should be. And it should be beyond Lagos. It should be a conversation that the federal government should adopt, which I have been in some quarters having conversations with some subnationals to create some agri hubs. Benue State, for example, produce a lot when it comes to food, fruits, and all of that. But arguably 40–50% of that get to waste, because again, the issue of not having the adequacy of the entire value chain. So we created a structure within my business to advise government that if you then become the off-takers, and particularly I want to praise my friend who is the Commissioner for Agric in Kwara State. I mean, we had this conversation. I was in Kwara for a bit of time as well. And the idea was that the government creates this hub to off-take from farmers. It's not just only about the the clusters of just having land for farmers to come. But when you offtake from farmers, what you then do is give them the focus to continue to produce. So you're not just buying fertilizers and giving them subsidy for all of those and, you know, having heavy investment in tractors and all of that. But their produce is also offtake. So when you offtake, everybody that produce bring to this center. From that center, you offtake from all the farmers, sort it into 3 categories. Again, I'm making this idea almost a national conversation. Sort it into 3 categories. One for immediate production of some byproduct or semi-finished goods that particular sector, and if it's not handled properly can cause you know, some economic issues, but of course on the back end of it is to, and I believe that the team working with Lagos State have thought it through end to end to ensure that all the risks are properly discussed and mitigated to ensure that
you are a policy development strategist now. So with your vast experience, just share a few I'm asking you to do this for free. Share a few tips that can help avoid the pitfalls. You have highlighted some of them already. Yeah.
Okay, so okay, so one of the things that it's important to do is that as much as Lagos has the commitment, Lagos should then work with the state that it has a partnership with to ensure that those states have the right infrastructure. And there is, I mean, let's put it, yes, the infrastructure, that's one. There's accountability as well, because you need that infrastructure and you need to, and I want to believe that's already in the contract anyway, that there is a way to monitor what is going on, despite the fact that there's sovereignty in those subnationals. But then if I'm the one giving you 50 billion to produce for me, I want to know that my money is going to the right place, not that 50 billion comes to you and then you decide to be God and take 10% and put in your and put in your pocket or put into something else. Because there's a tendency that a subnational can get such humongous amount of money and then decide to start buying vehicles. It's very possible. But there must be intelligent conversations between Lagos State and those subnationals to be able to say, how many acreage of land do you have? What are the possible risks? Whether the God factor that you can't do anything about. I mean, when I say the God factor, you talk about environmental impact that you can't do anything about, whether it's flood or whether it's drought and all of those things. So how do we mitigate all of those? If you're also producing certain things for me, then I need to understand that you have it mitigated and what you're producing for me is also not going to cost me because of instead of using organic fertilizers, you're using chemical fertilizers for yield, so that I can, you know, so we need to have proper accountability, proper quality control, proper structure. Like I said, those subnationals that Lagos is engaging must have those hubs that helps to ensure that what the farmers are producing are coming. But of course, in the production, there is proper data, and we're able to analyze. And then, like I would say, I mean, I'm from Imota, so the rice mill, the Lagos rice mill, is situated in my hometown. The conversation before used to be that Kebbi used to produce the paddy, right? But what you would discover is that what Kebbi brings to the partnership that was called Lake Rice then, that's Lagos and Kebbi, LA and KE, was Kebbi destoning. And Kebbi wasn't necessarily producing all of the paddy. Most of it was produced from the region around Niger, Kwara, and all of that, Songa and the likes, and all those regions. So Kebbi we destone and bring to Lagos. Kebbi wasn't producing all of the paddies. Now, around that same time, I was in Kwara. Like I said, I was discussing with the state government around this, and I sat in a room where the head of, that's Harmony Holdings, that's the holding company of Kwara State, was discussing a 50,000 back-end integration because they also set up a mill. So it then meant that all of the rice producers within that region would rather give their paddy to the state. So Kebbi now didn't have enough, so that's why Lake Rice wasn't coming out for a period of time. And so now, if Lagos is now re-energizing that meal and making it fully functional. Lagos need to ensure that that back-end integration, which is again the conversation of Produce for Lagos, but that must be intelligently discussed to understand that we have an infrastructure to mill, but this infrastructure must be operational to its full capacity. And for us to be able to do that, we need to do the back-end integration of supplying the paddy. So it should not be tied just only to one state or a group of states. Lagos should begin to think about what can we do differently. So if Lagos does not take care and continue to rely solely on those who are producing for Lagos, there's a tendency that we'll wake up one day and that particular meal will become moribund. So can we produce in Lagos? So there's a rice field in Itoki that is not active, and Itoki still belongs to Lagos State. In fact, the road between Itoki and Ibefun is a no-go area. The road is terrible. Even your SUV cannot pass. Trucks and trailers cannot. So what do they now do? All of the commercial vehicles, even trucks, go through the rice field to come out.
The road is now under construction.
Nah, it's not. So supposedly Itoki to Sabo in Ikorodu, Imota and all the way, is supposedly under construction, but not a lot of active work. I pass this road almost every other time I'm in Lagos. I'm from Imota, so I travel between Imota to Ijebu-Ode and back, so I know that road. I can tell you for free, if we want to go there now, for us to access Ibefun, that's Ogun State, we have to go through that rice field. The road in the rice field is also terrible. Yes, there's some parts under the Sukuk. Some parts is being under construction. I know the road very well. But you see, the point between Itoki after the bridge to cross into Ibefun is a no-go area. They go through the rice field. Now, I'm only mentioning this road infrastructure because of the rice field. And the rice field is there. Nothing is happening. So if Lagos really wants to do better for itself, can still initiate the rice production in that rice field and take more land. Like I said, we should not allow the real estate guys to turn all the lands in Lagos into land banking and real estate, where at the end of the day it's just all scam. Because if you go into the rice field, there is somebody who has done some gatehouse and putting signboard there that is selling land, and I mean in the midst of bush and absolutely nothing. Somebody is scamming people. So clearly, Lagos State needs to look at that region into Ekpe and turn more of those land into rice fields to be able to say, even if it's 10,000 hectares that we can do, let's be producing within Lagos. That will feed the rice mill. The same thing goes to every other thing we can do from land, from K2 into Ekpe. We can just intelligently look at all those land and say, you know what, Lagos takes this land from landowners, lease it, a long lease, pay the families, and let Lagos now sort of turn it into farm estate, and let farmers and those who are interested in farming come and take portions of the land, with the understanding that I am also committing some funds into this farm. I'm investing into it with a return on my investment. The same thing goes to Ekpe. We can turn a huge mass of land in Ekpe into a fish hub of Lagos, and Lagos will intelligently look at the waters. Ekpe used to be where even used to be an international waters for seafoods. Re-energize that back, turn most of those land that they are turning into estate and just empty plot of land that they are using for land banking into a fish hub, and let it be that there are ponds already created. You and I do not have to buy land and do ponds in back of my house or back of your house, but we can go there, lease a pond, get youth of the community to help me. Hey, this is my pond, I've leased it from government, I buy my fingerlings, I put them there, there is a warehouse where I can buy feed, people are there, and then people come there off take when it is time, and then they take it to the production section, and process and turn them into dry fish for export and package and all of that. Put that hub there where you can do the end-to-end, and you will see this re-energizing the production of food for Lagos and hopefully for the international market.
I would have asked you about poultry, livestock, but you have touched on it already.
Absolutely.
Well, another thing that I want you to really break down is the issue of reducing waste. You shared with us your experience while traveling, and you saw tomatoes
Yes.
at every spot on the way. So talking about the Produce for Lagos, that's still, it's not our reality now,
Yes,
but it's
yes.
a work in progress. But with our reality now, what can be done both on the part of government, both on the part of those in the food industry? How can, what steps can be taken to reduce waste?
Thank you. I mean, like I said, in fact, we are currently talking to a Canadian company who has this organic fertilizer factory where it's purely organic, and they produce even from food waste, rice chaff, and organic waste basically, including even household waste, organic waste from the household side, food waste, and all of that. To set up a factory in Nigeria, based on our financial projections, and we're trying to talk to some subnationals, the idea is that we want to set up 1 per 6 geopolitical zone to start with as a prototype. To set up a factory, just about $30 million. At least you can scale up, but just a fairly minimum we can start with, about $30 million to start one. Part of the conversation of Produce for Lagos, and when we talk about food waste and wastage from that, is to then to be able to say, I've set the strategy of the agri hubs that offtake, so that every farmer knows that by the time it's time for harvest, I don't have to think about who to sell to. I just need to harvest and take to this center. They're paying me. In fact, on the back end of that is to be able to provide funds for the farmers to produce. So instead of just giving subsidy for fertilizers and pesticides and all of that, if you have, let's say, 1 hectare of land, you need intelligently this number of organic fertilizers and all of this, come to the center, we will give it to you, you don't have to pay. When we give you that, go to farm, make sure you produce. When you are done producing and you harvest, you bring, we offtake from you, we then net out what you have taken and give you your money back, the rest of your balance. So the farmers have money, so they will continue to produce. So when we take that, we reduce wastage, because every farmer that produces knows that as I harvest, I have where I'm taking them to. Now, if you then take from the production, like I said, one of the CADA 3 levels, the ones that you turn into byproducts for immediate production, whatever waste is generated from there, then you take them into this fertilizer conversations that we're having, to then turn them into organic fertilizer. So now you have a full circle. You have the organic fertilizer, go back to the farm, and then there's that circle of production. So these are some of the things that we've thought
Interesting
about.
Conversation here, talking about food security challenges in Lagos, and our guest, Dr. Jeff Adebowale, has shared some strategies, on how the Produce for Lagos initiative would be beneficial both to the government and to all. We must thank you again for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Very educative. I didn't know that agriculture can be this interesting. Thank you again, Dr. Jeff.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
The conversation continues after this. Stay with us.